Good morning. It is Monday, May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Would like to call this workshop to order. Please stand for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Moving right along. Natalie, any public input cards today? Perfect. Moving on to item 3.01, Code of Student Conduct and Policy Guide for 25-26. Joseph Mabry. And Carlos Salas. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members, superintendent. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the 25-26 Code of Student Conduct and Policy Guide. This is something that we do annually by committee to reflect statutory changes, language clarification. This is a living document that will continuously change as statutes and state board rules change. We most recently found out about the passage of a cell phone rule last week, and that'll be reflected, and Mr. Salas will discuss that. This committee is comprised of school-based administrators from elementary, middle, and high, along with other community members. The union is represented in that as well. And Mr. Cole has had an opportunity to look through the revisions as well. So this is a culmination of that work and that effort. And Mr. Salas will discuss with you the changes for 25-26.
Good morning, board members. Good morning, superintendent. Just a summary of this presentation. We're going to be talking about alignment with the Florida statute, alignment with our policies, and language cleanup and clarification of the Student Code of Conduct. The first thing that we have reflected in this document is the statute alignment with changes with excused absences regarding the 4-H or FFA late or excused tardiness or excused absences. Here, in the near future, meaning this week, I'm going to be working on the cell phone statute change for elementary and middle school. It didn't pass until until last week, so we're going to reflect that towards the new code of conduct, so we don't have to amend the code of conduct during the year. We'll put it out there for you guys revision, so when we put it to print, it already reflects those changes. So it's not in the presentation, but we'll have it soon, and I'll share it with you with those changes from the statute. We also have policy alignment changes to the due process. Policies 5611, we update this policy this year. This policy pretty much says that every time in the due process that we suspend a student from a school, we have to advise the parents within 24 hours via USA mail. Now the policy got changed and we aligned it where that notification doesn't need to be by US mail. It can be done by email or any other way that the parents choose. So they can be either printing the suspension by hand in the car line or anywhere. So it's just pretty much giving a little more open communication between the school and the parents about suspension, the due process. And then we have some language cleanup and clarification in the attendance rules, insurance, school counseling programs, prescription medication, required medical management plans, non-prescription medication, and head lies. Also, other parts in behavior range and corrective strategies and disciplinary action, check-in and check-out, counseling, detention, and school plus, attendance rule violation, inappropriate conduct or behavior, level 3 discipline, alcohol, drug use, possession, and level 4 disciplinary action. So I'm going to go into more detail in this document. So I need to jump to the other document. Thank you. It's very small, but I'm going to go over this document. So what you can see on the left-hand side is the page number where it is reflected in the code of conduct. So if you see a 45, that's the page number. The next part is what we are changing, what section of the code of conduct, and who is responsible for those changes. As Mr. Mabry said, this is a collaboration, so not every change has been made by my person, but every department that collaborates for the code of conduct is reflected there. And then we can, we have the language cleanup and everything. So I'm going to start with the first, is the clarification about the attendance rule and the student services in page 4.5 in the attendance rule says that more than 10 excused and excused absences is considered to be excessive. So the services is taken away a semester. So we're just saying that, hey, 10 will be excessive for attendance rule violation.
Why? Can we ask questions now, or you wait?
The cleanup of that will be on Dr. Landry, which is services, change it. So I don't know if you want to wait and we can
totally fine with you guys. It's totally up to you.
wait, just in case we have other, she has
Sure.
several things that are being changed by student services. So if you have more questions,
Okay,
she
that's
can just get
perfectly
off
fine.
one time and you guys can answer.
Sounds good.
Then, as I said, because of a statute in page 5, we are, as excused absences or tardy to school, we're reflecting the 4H and future of America as excused absences or tardies. So that's just to be aligned with the statute. Then in page 5 of the Student Code of Conduct, the bullet number 13 about student rules was contradicting with bullet number 6. So in the Code of Conduct, in bullet number 6, it says, it's asking you have to turn in an excused absence to the school within 48 hours, which the bullet number 13 is telling you that the parents can excuse the student within that 9 weeks. So the Code of Conduct was contradicting, and Student Services revised that language, and we pretty much took away bullet number 13, which is saying that the documentation is needed within 48 hours that the student returns to school. The student, if you were to go to our to a Student Code of Conduct, number 6 says that whether the student of compulsory school age is absent or tardy at school without permission of the person in charge of the school, the parent guardian of the student will, within a grading period
Okay.
after the absence. So you see 13 said 48 hours, but 6 says within the marking period. So we were having, questions from a school, which one do we
Why did you
adhere?
Yeah.
choose to eliminate this one?
And-
It seems to make a lot more sense.
So,
And Dr. Landry with the Student Services will clarify with you. So we have that. So because this part is coming from a Student Service attendance rule violation, I say, hey, we're having that problem. The schools are calling me, which one we go with. They revise it, they propose the changes, and they will come in a second and explain that reasoning for you guys.
Mr. Stills, if you don't mind, I think we're going to jump around a little bit to risk management and others. Dr. Landry, do you mind coming up now so we can at least address these first 2 or 3 questions before they get too far away?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. So I think the first question was around the taking out semester for the 10 excused, unexcused absences.
Right.
So I was just thinking about this. This change came from one of my coordinators, but it's supposed to align with statute that 10% of the school year is considered chronic absenteeism.
So it'll be 18 days.
Yes.
Not 10.
It says days, not percent, right?
It does say days.
Okay. All right. Makes sense to me just to leave it.
Leave what?
Leave what's in here now. More than 10 excused, unexcused absences in a semester is considered to be excessive. Why change it if we don't have to? Because that's actually correct.
So there won't be any change.
Won't be any change. We'll just leave it like it is.
So the red outline, we will not strike in a semester. It will be 10 in a semester.
Correct.
Okay.
And so if a student has meets those particular conditions, I know there are particular schools in the district that don't allow that student to participate in the graduation ceremony, and that's driven school by school, right? That's not
Correct.
the district. Well, I guess I'll just throw this out there. There's a student in high school in my district who reached that point last year and is told that they're not going to walk for this year. And so here we are, this close to the end of the year, and they've decided to leave our high school and said, okay, I'm done. You know,
Yes, that is unfortunate, and that would have been a principal decision. I apologize. I
we
don't
okay
have
with
any
that?
influence over that.
No, honestly. No, I wish I had known about that.
yeah, I just found out about it yesterday. I said, what? Really?
The student dropped out?
Of school?
Well,
Because they can't walk at graduation. Said, "Dude, I'm done."
no. And
Oh, we need to do something
And
about
so,
that.
you know, I guess, you
I'm
know,
wondering if there's not another side to that story.
there
It
could be
just
more to that
doesn't-
story, but, you know, I guess I
would-
disagree with
There
it, you know?
has to be.
Like, if, anytime during your 4 years, if you've met this criteria, apparently you're not allowed to walk at graduation 3 years later. Or in this particular case, it was last year, exceeded the absence number.
It doesn't say that anywhere in here.
No, not here. It's a school rule, right? And
I'm curious about that. I would love to know more and would love to follow up on that. If you've got that information, I'd love to get that from you.
I can get some more information. And
Okay.
I can find out exactly who the kid is.
Yes, that would be-
Because, you know,
that
I'm
would be
just
good.
kind of hearing it from somebody else who
Right.
knows
Yeah.
the kid. And there may be more to the story, but I don't know, the rule seems kind of funny to me.
Yeah, I would love to look into that further,
Okay.
please.
Okay, I think the second question, Mr. Mathias, right, was
Yes, correct.
the contradiction between 6 and 13. And in bringing it in front of the committee and just talking within our group at Student Services, we were erring on the side of giving parents more time to turn in those notes. But certainly, we're at the will of the board, so if you guys would prefer that we leave 13
And
instead of 6,
that would be my preference, because I can't believe you're going to go 9 weeks, you missed the first day of the semester, and then go 9 weeks, and they have all that time.
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why the delay from a parent side. It's a very cumbersome process now with Focus, that now I have to write the note, snap a photo of the note, send that note to my computer, upload the note in Focus, or try to do it all through here, versus in the olden days, you could just send in a piece of paper.
you can't send in a piece of paper anymore?
They say they don't want paper.
Sounds like another school decision to me.
And so
I don't,
they
that's
say,
not
no, you
true.
got to go in Focus and indicate it. So
I think in 48 hours, I could take a frickin' picture.
Well, but it's a cumbersome process because I write the note. I physically write the note. Now I got to take the photo. Now I got to go, if I'm not logging in through my phone and I'm doing this through the computer. This is why parents aren't doing it, because they're logging.
I don't
into
do it,
Focus.
Bill. I don't do it.
I don't do it either. I
don't
leave all my
either.
kids unexcused.
I just take it unexcused.
Me too, 100% every time.
Okay, well, that's
That's a
parent
parent
choice.
choice.
It is a parent choice. I don't disagree. Like having 3 kids in the system, and if Jace is home puking and a couple days go by, I'm like, I don't care. His grades are fine. Now, if his grades were suffering or if there was something happening, I would probably be more diligent about it. But
Right.
it's like,
But we're,
Could I just
Yes.
give a little bit more feedback? When we end up taking these students to truancy, when this becomes a problem, the 48 hours is an excuse that a lot of parents use. Like, well, I'd write more notes, but I just don't have time. And it sounds, the judge is a little bit sympathetic to that. So,
could you increase to
Yeah.
72 and not go 9 weeks?
If you change the process, it would drastically change things. So if you went into Focus, like there are so many reasons that we excuse a kid, right? Why do I have to write a note that says my kid was sick, take a picture of that and upload it? If I can just log into Focus and click my kid was sick that day, then that process is done.
so wow, yes, that's IT. So none of that really has, I don't have much
Yeah.
influence in those areas, but I'm gonna write that down. We can look into it. Like either parents should be able to go right into Focus and do it, or send the note and have the data clerks do it. That was how I understood it was being done, but it's clearly not in all schools.
Well,
Okay.
perhaps we need some consensus throughout schools. I mean, just because your child goes to school in Umatilla, the rules shouldn't be totally different in Claremont.
I
Yeah.
agree.
And on the side of the school, it's a nightmare to give parents 9 weeks to get
Okay.
those notes in.
Okay.
We need to think about the data clerk, because they got to keep track of all that stuff, and they got to go back. So,
So what do you all recommend? 72 hours, Mr. Matthias?
Well, as a
suggested?
compromise position, I don't see, seems to me like when my two boys were in school, if they were sick, the next day you brought a note in.
Yeah,
I mean, that was the next day.
agree.
So letting it go 9 weeks certainly isn't tolerable. If it gives you more time to snap a picture and upload, 72, I'm just not okay with 9 weeks. That's
Okay.
my problem.
Meanwhile, we'll look into an option that might make it easier for parents within Focus. I would imagine that that's probably a very simple fix. Yes, people are shaking their head,
If it
yes,
is-
that's,
If it's easy to do in Focus, then my advocacy would be to stay with the 48 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, opinion.
That seems like it would take work off the school side too, because then they don't have to process
It
these
would.
notes, right? They read the note, match up the date. I mean, just
store the
Agree.
notes.
it becomes a lot less cumbersome, and maybe that will lead to greater effectiveness. I don't know.
Okay.
It's probably why the schools are telling us.
I don't have strong opinions on the
That's okay.
numbers. I mean, if the
They
judge
want
is
to
sympathetic to 48 hours, I don't know how much 72 hours really changes that. What about like a week?
24 hours.
I mean, it does change
I was
24 hours,
thinking
but
too,
does
like-
that change of 24
I
hours
was
worth
thinking
of
too, you
sympathy?
put
I don't know.
week. I was thinking a week also.
But if that note really comes in at like 96 hours, do they really turn it away? Do they deny the note?
Probably not.
Probably
I
not.
I don't know.
It sounds like another
I've
school-by-school
gotten-
decision.
I have gotten a few phone calls from parents this year, upset parents that they didn't get it in on time. That's actually how we came to realize this.
So-
Because
I'm sorry.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. Finish.
I would be, my recommendation would be a week, simply because it is a nice balance. And when you say to a judge, parents have a week to get these letters in, he might be more willing to say, okay, that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
So.
But when the judge says that, do we say, all you got to do is write a freaking note? How long does that take? And
No.
hand it in?
No,
I
we
mean,
don't.
seriously.
I understand, but when you take truancy cases in front of the judge, all the judges we've had over the years, they want to support the families as much as possible. And I guess that's a good position to be in when you're, when you're a
Always find
judge.
that that's what everybody-
So,
So then it's the thought to remove number 6 and change bullet 13 to within 1 week? Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
okay, we're moving six.
Yes.
And we will look into parents entering it into Focus.
Yeah, that is a good point, Mr. Judd.
That'd be wonderful.
Well, and I'm also trying to think about the parents that are in these hearings. That might present a little bit of a different challenge. And I mean, I was also thinking when your flu runs through your house and there's 5 of you, it takes a little bit of
It
time
does.
to
It takes a
get back
while.
on your feet. But that's probably not the people that are in a truancy hearing either. So I think that's a week is good.
I do too.
I'm not sure if this one was yours, because I wrote this down first when I was going to be quiet late for the presentation.
All these questions, why wait? Let's get them all
But I'm
out.
not sure if it's you or not.
Okay.
How we're notifying parents if their kids are suspended. That
So-
right now we're required to do it by U.S. mail.
So
That's correct.
the statute changed, and we changed our policy. Now we're changing the code of conduct where it says that now the school can have a secondary or another way of communicate that suspension with the parents, either via U.S. mail. That's still being a choice within 24 hours.
Who is making that choice? The parent?
The disciplinary person, like the
I'd like to see
principal.
us still send it by mail.
And that's
my point.
always been a choice. And most schools either gave it to them, but everyone mailed it.
Correct, but policy was always saying within 24 hours by mail.
Right.
Now the statute tells you have to notify the parents in 24 hours, leaving the how to notify the parent a little more to the, if the parent decide, hey, don't send me any more notification by mail, hand it to me or hand it to Johnny to give it to me. That's something that gets prearranged by the administrator, and then it gives.
But we're doing district-wide policy here, right?
Right,
So,
yes.
so it seems to me, if you want to give it to Johnny, which if I were Johnny, I'm not giving it to my parents.
Exactly. That's
But
why we make
that's
it.
what they happened. But that's what they.
But US Mail is pretty consistent, and at least there's proof that we're, you know what I mean, that we're doing
But
our
there's
due
also,
diligence.
there's also verbal notification to the parent, and then the parent will indicate how they would like to receive the formal documentation of it. So we're talking to parents saying, your child has been suspended. How would you like the notification? Do you want me to give it to him to bring home? Do you want me to mail it? So it gives another option to the
But if
parents
you
to choose.
emailed it, the parent could have that position. It went in my spam, I never got it.
But they're
All I'm
not
saying
finding
is-
out about the
Correct.
suspension
That was
from this
just gonna-
from this notification. They're
Correct.
getting a phone call.
Correct.
They're not waiting for the U.S. mail to arrive and be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
wow, Bill got suspended."
That's correct.
Because he's already
Oh,
suspended.
so
it.
what's the purpose?
This is just having the written document. How do you want to
How
get
do
the
you
written
want to receive the
documentation of
written
this phone call
documentation
that I
of it?
just gave you? Do you want me to just email this to you, or do you want it by mail, snail mail?
So we're going to confirm the conversation
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
by mail or email.
You need that documentation. And I understand there's some parents you may have a good relationship with and you see them in the car line, but there's something just better about you being able to produce a piece of paper and say, hey, I mailed this to you.
And are we sending it certified or
Not in the
mail?
past.
just mail?
Yes.
It's just mailed. Some things we have to send certified once they escalate, if it involves hearings and court and other things. But a lot of times we're receiving return mail as well for addresses not being,
That's true. But
Correct.
that serves another purpose. Then you know when people haven't
Yeah.
told you where they live.
Right.
That's right.
That doesn't happen.
I mean, we can put the and, meaning the 24 hours by US mail, and another way that the.
I'm totally good with that, 100%.
Put in the and, so the school
and.
can do, always send the US mail notification, and then via email or via car rider pickup line.
because I think the intent is to make sure they get that hard copy, and US mail obviously is an archaic way of doing that, 25, and it's not always foolproof, so.
And not quick.
It's
you know,
not fast.
if I'm a parent in that situation, I want to see this paper as soon as I can.
Right.
You know, and now I'm going to be waiting.
Yeah, because the
Days.
suspension could be one day.
That's
and
right.
The time that the mail comes is.
It's already
over.
done.
It's over. So I will put the N in that notification, so we have
A little more flexibility.
two options
Yeah.
to notify the parents that, well, the verbal, the US mail, and if the parents want it by email or any other way, we'll notify them that way. But that's agree each school, with each parent, how they get notified, okay? Any other question? So also, I wanted to say, the student service also strike out number 18, attendance rule, where it says administration attendance rule, that attendance office, under the supervision of the principal or designee, is allowed the flexibility to design the paperwork procedures of the coordination with the school counselor office in the implementation of the attendance rules. So that part also is being strike out of attendance rule in our code of conduct by student services.
So are we having one uniform option now that everybody will use by not allowing the flexibility? Is that how I'm reading that?
That's what I believe student service is trying to minimize that
Makes sense.
ambiguity of I do one thing in one school,
Yep.
together with it.
Perfect. Dr. Landry's coming up real quick just to confirm. You're fine.
Yes. is the answer.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Landry.
Great speech.
Then risk management in page 16 about the insurance is saying that the school board of Lake County has purchased a student accident insurance for all students. And this insurance provides a secondary coverage in the event of an injury. It's, designed to cover and deductibles of other out-of-pocket expenses that might be incurred. Everything except for football players, okay? And if the student plays football, if you wish to, they could have, they can purchase through another vendor extra coverage in that case. Mr. Oyer just put there, he updated the website that parents can check all this insurance.
Does that include flag football at the middle school? Anything football related?
I wondered that,
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
And what about soccer?
because they call that football.
Soccer
They do
is
call that
included.
football.
Depends on the country.
And I've been to some of the
My
soccer games
country
now.
will be also include soccer, but it's
It will include.
no. I'm just.
The insurance includes soccer.
Huh?
The insurance
Yes.
includes soccer.
The exception is American football.
American
Okay.
football.
But the flag, that's a good question. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's-
I'm looking at
that's
the
new.
link right now, and it just appears to say football, either spring or fall or whatever else, but it doesn't seem to specify flag or not.
Because flag is not tackle, obviously, so.
Right. Yeah, okay.
It's a good clarification, though, to get that answer.
If we continue on page 17, we have, they just changed the language from that to who, to clean up the meaning, the understanding of that part, and also the individual council session is, they took the in out of it. Page 33, prescription medication. They changed the language. They clarified that all medication must be in the original container and stored under lock key. The non-prescription, there's also a clarification from Student Services when the non-prescription medication should be delivered by the parents and guardians, but the non-prescription medication might be administered for 72 hours, 3 consecutive school days, and might be continued the following week if 72 hours includes the weekend. So I guess there was some contradiction there. It's like, hey, they were counting in those 72 hours the weekend. So now it's clarified that the weekends is not part of those 72 hours. Then the required medical management plans, at the end, they say that the plan, if there is any, updated, contact the school nurses or student services, so they can go straight to the school nurses, and parents must provide current medical documentation annually. They clarified that because the parents could say that and then 3 years later say, hey, I notified the school, they need to do it annually.
Or days? Is that 3 days, or is
Yeah,
it?
school days, 3
School
consecutive
days.
school days.
School days,
The school days.
exception of weekend and holidays.
When would they ever prescribe school, when would they get any kind of medication after school hours?
You
You see, if it says 72 hours,
yeah.
in my world, those would be time that you're sitting at your seat.
Good.
Dr. Landry,
Hi.
hi.
So under consultation from my nursing folks, of course, because I'm not a medical person, when a student takes non-prescription medication for 3 days, 72 hours, they feel like the child should be checked out for needing something more serious. So after 72 hours, if you're taking ibuprofen or you're taking something over the counter and your parent says you can, we're allowing you to take it for 3 days. And then the nurses say, if you still need it, you probably ought to go see your doctor.
So could we save some words if we just said non-prescription medication may be administered for 3 consecutive school days?
Sure.
I agree.
Sure. The correction this year came from parents being confused when the 72 hours
Right.
was
So we
split
would
by
just
the
take out-
weekend.
Yeah, so we would just take out that reference to 72 hours because it wouldn't matter for the weekend because we just said 3 consecutive school days.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so that wording to you would indicate Thursday, Friday, and Monday.
Good.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, it sure would.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Long ago, parents would bring in, there were kids who had chronic headaches.
Yes.
So they would bring in like Tylenol, and the child had a note that said, when I have a headache, I can go see the nurse and take Tylenol. Maybe that's antiquated, but do we no longer have those kind of situations?
No, we actually do, and it's in statute,
Okay.
starting
So how do
last
we
year.
address that? Because that's longer than 3 days.
There may be other questions.
I mean, if you have a headache this week and you don't have a headache for a week and then you have a headache, how does that
That doesn't apply to this rule.
Okay.
Because it's in statute now that
Okay.
children can carry if they have a permission from their parents
So-
for anything that can resolve a headache. It's reserved for headaches.
Okay, so you said they can carry. Does that include
can
elementary kids?
No.
So how do we handle them?
They go to the nurse.
Okay, so there's something different that addresses them? I mean, a different,
It's in our
it's not included in the student?
It is not, I don't think.
They'd have to have the parental written consent. on
But
the
shouldn't it be
non-prescription medication
included in
consent
the code?
At secondary, number 5 on page 33, at secondary schools only, students may carry the following medication with written parental consent on Lake County schools. And it lists there everything that we've determined, well, our nurses have determined, can be used for headaches.
Okay. So what about elementary kids?
Well, this, so, I'd have to ask.
If you would,
I'm not
please.
sure there's that latitude
Okay.
at elementary.
Okay, I just think we need to address them.
At elementary, they would have to receive the medication from a school
Yes, they-
employee.
they couldn't
And so they would
carry.
have filled out this non-prescription medication consent form,
Yes.
So it is
right?
in-
Does that consent form apply after 3 consecutive school days?
No.
So after that 3 days, an order must be secured from the child's medical provider. So the medical provider would provide that.
Correct.
And so then they can continue beyond the 3 days.
Yes, to see the nurse.
Right.
To see the nurse
And
for
the nurse would
elementary.
continue providing that.
Yes.
They wouldn't be carrying it on their person. They would.
No. But right, so are you asking me if it's different for elementary?
No, I'm
and the
asking-
headache?
I'm asking you, how does an elementary parent know what the rules are if it's not included in the code?
So it is, they would fill out the non-prescription medication form.
How,
But it is included because it says, after the 3 school days, an order must be secured from the child's medical provider. So they would have to get an
If you have
order.
chronic headaches, you just get the doctor to prescribe Tylenol.
And then you bring that order back to the school. And then they would
Within 9 weeks.
okay.
stop.
Okay, so the difference now is they have to get
Smart.
an order from the doctor. In the past, they didn't.
Different now, meaning when you
Meaning
referred
now
to
they
being
have to get-
antiquated a while ago? Because this is not new this year.
They were just trying to clarify the 72 hours, what that meant.
So
it's-
that doesn't deal with, is it dealt with someplace else?
No, I don't think they're changing the process. They were just trying to clarify what the 72 hours meant.
Okay.
Right, is that right?
And I have
your
no
question?
problem with that, but my question is, where do we tell elementary parents how to handle that? Where is it included?
It is right here, non-prescription medication.
So from reading this, an average elementary parent is supposed to know what you just told me?
Well, the average elementary parent is probably not reading this. I think they're getting this information from the school.
nurse.
I think if they're saying, hey, my kid has got chronic headaches and
I'm
needs
gonna
to
have
take this
to,
Tylenol.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you there. I've dealt with a lot of elementary parents and elementary nurses, and I've not had that experience. I've ended up with those people in my office wanting to know how their kid is gonna get their Tylenol, which is why I'm asking.
Okay, so you would like me to,
No, I just want you to explain to me how an elementary parent, if this is the explanation, that's fine. I just want to understand how an elementary parent knows how to deal with their child who has chronic headaches. So I think what you're telling me is they go through this process, and then after 3 days, because we know that's going to happen, because this is a kid who has a history of having headaches. So they need to just get an order from the doctor.
yes.
Okay.
But if they had chronic, wouldn't they already have the notes from the doctor?
Not
You wouldn't
necessarily.
wait 72 hours, would you?
Well, I don't know. You know, we're talking about parents.
But we are trying to, we're trying to make it consistent, right? And we're also trying to be fair.
Right.
Right.
And this 72-hour thing keeps popping up. But if you're chronic, where you need aspirin every day.
You
seems
probably
like-
already had a
That-
prescription from a doctor, and then that's a different area. That's prescribed medication, and there's a
No,
different,
but Tylenol is Tylenol
if it
prescribed?
comes from a
can be.
doctor, it's considered prescribed.
How many days go between the 72 hours? So if I have a kid that, and the reason I'm asking is because if it's allergy season, you know, you have a headache, you take, you know, you get Claritin or an ibuprofen, and then you you've done it a couple days at the elementary school, and then 2 weeks go by, and now I need it again. Is that, like, is there a time span where you're eligible to go back, or does that become, because no, I wouldn't take him to the doc. I mean, my kids do have allergies. I have redheaded, fair-skinned babies, so,
What's the waiting period?
yeah, what's the waiting period between the 72?
Yeah, the form. Okay, good.
So I've been researching. Because I actually was like, I don't know either. My understanding, which I think is what Chris was saying, so yes, when you get to the point, I think allergies is a really good example. Chronic headaches, I was a chronic headache kid when I was little, but the rules were different then too. Then you would have to have the medical note from the doctor, and that's where this non-prescription medication consent form comes from. So once you go past the 3 days or 72 hours, whichever way we decide, we're going with 3 consecutive school days, then that's when the doctor's note would be needed, so that you could have the Advil or Tylenol in the nurse's office for allergy season. When you have the student like that, I would just get headaches from lights like this when I was little. So, I mean, things like that, you would have the medical note and then fill out the same form. And it would be communication via the nurse.
Okay.
And so I think making sure that when we are speaking with parents, and we do, probably it comes in attendance, right? We see some attendance issues, maybe the student's not coming to school, maybe because they're having headaches, and maybe through the nurse, making sure that they understand, fill out this form, and we can try to help your student be in school more frequently so that we can mitigate like their different symptoms, so.
Do the parents bring this in?
Yes.
Tylenol,
Yeah.
whatever?
Yes.
Well, they used to.
Yes.
Yes. In middle school
But
and
you-
high school, they can carry it themselves.
But you could go 3 days, not get aspirin one day, and then you got 3 more days.
Technically, you could, but a nurse is going to be involved and going to help do the right thing, family.
Especially
for the
littles.
kid.
In elementary, they don't have it on, and they would have to go to the nurse. And the nurse at that point would be looking for something.
This form.
Yes, this form, to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the student as well, medically.
Thank you, ladies.
Did we get it straightened out? Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
We're going 3 consecutive school days. Every place that it says 72 hours in this, okay, all right, gotcha. All right, thank you.
Now, if one of those days is early release, over to the
Then
fourth
you get
day,
half a day on the 4th day.
Thank you, Dr. Landry.
just wondering.
Change it to 3 consecutive school days. Moving along, the next one is head lice. They're changing, student services changing per recommendation to the word clarification of we have taken into the guidance provided by the.
If I were you, I'd want to know, hey, why are we changing what we're
I don't think, we're not changing, right? We're just changing the wording of, instead of the recommendations, now we're saying we're calling that guidance.
Yes,
Right?
and
The
there's
policy
a
doesn't
very
change.
specific reason, and it's because the AMA and whatever agencies that we look to for recommendations here, they are now saying that they're okay with live lice in schools.
What?
Yeah.
That's
so-
not new. We went through
Yeah,
this
that's not
years
new
ago.
at all.
Years ago.
No,
No.
we
We're only
did.
looking for deadlines?
No, we did. And what used to not be recommended before this year was the knits. A long time ago, we didn't want any of
That's
that
right.
in our schools, right? And then we changed it a couple of years ago because they all recommended that knits, we can't keep kids out of school for knits only, only for live lice.
That's
So it's
the
an
eggs.
egg.
The eggs. So we're still saying if you've got live lice, you're going home to address that.
Yes, yes,
Right, right.
yes.
So the policy hasn't changed. We're just changing recommendations to guidance.
Right.
Yes, because
That's
we actually aren't
We're following
following their
stricter
recommendations.
standards,
We're
yeah.
considering their recommendations, but we're not.
Okay.
Because we have some very savvy parents who read this and they look stuff up, and so
Oh, I see.
we just want to be careful with our wording.
When does a knit hatch?
That's the
So-
golden question.
Does it go
Mr.
after
Myers.
school?
If any of those knits are less than 3 school days old, then
Within 9 weeks.
Any other questions on lice? We can keep this rolling. We good?
Let's see, am I done? I'm just going to look and see here.
I think you are done. No, you got,
Counseling.
Counseling.
Counseling is not me.
okay.
Used to be a while ago, but that's actually college and career readiness now, so.
thank you, Dr. Landry.
Of course.
Carlos, your show once again, my friend.
Check in and check out.
Learning a lot.
You and me both.
Still, yeah, it catches.
In page 44, curriculum instruction, in our intervention, check-in and check-out, they are adding the language of a strategy that provides a student with a routine feedback on behavior and increased positive adult attention daily. I guess it was too lacking of understanding from the school, and curriculum just changed that to have a little more understanding of what check-in and check-out intervention is for the students and staff. In page 44, college and career readiness just changed, instead of saying behavior problems to difficulties.
I'm sorry, just 1 second. So I don't understand what that says at all. A strategy that provides students with routine feedback on behavior and increased positive adult attention daily. So that's a lot of words. But if I'm a parent, I got no clue what this is.
So as an attempt to clarify the language and give a little bit more explanation. So check-in, check-out is most often used through our MTSS process when we have students who just need that daily. They come to school. I'm going to go check with my school counselor. My school counselor's like, all right, how are we doing today? We good? Did we have breakfast? Did you sleep well? We're going to have a good day, right? Okay, yeah, go to class.
That's the strategy.
I'm here. Right.
Okay.
Then at the end of the day, they might come back and be like, how'd your day go? Did we have a good day? Everything was good? Any issues? Like, what can we talk about real fast so we can mitigate this so tomorrow we don't have another one? So it is a strategy used in MTSS when we're dealing with our students who are having some behavior difficulties. So that daily interaction with a trusted adult, normally it's a school counselor, sometimes it's an administrator, it could be a teacher, it might be the front office clerk who has a
Thank you.
thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but why do we include it in the student code?
It's in the MTSS part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's written in kind of funny language where it's not necessarily complete sentences, because this is a whole section of definitions.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Sellis.
All right. 44, we changed our career and college readiness, change the work problems, behavior problems for difficulties. Now, safety and security, in page 45, we had in the code of conduct as a disciplinary action, detention and school plus together. So to clarify, detention is any time that the student is being held for disciplinary action during the school day, which is school plus could be Wednesday school or Saturday school. It's off hours of the school. So the schools were getting confused what that detention and a school plus was, and we separate the two definitions as an outcome of a disciplinary action that can happen from the administrator giving discipline to the student. So we cleaned the detention, the school plus, we kept it as a detention. The student may be detained, the disciplinary reason for extended length of time after school upon notification of the parents and legal guardian at least 24 hours in advance. Reasonable detention during non-instruction time of a student might be permitted. During the school day, transportation of a student following detention is responsibility of the parent. Okay? Then a school plus is again in page 45. We divide, break into two. A student might be detained for disciplinary reason, extended length of time after school on Saturday or on Saturday upon notification of student parents or legal guardian at least 24 hours in advance. The students are required to bring and perform school work. Transportation of student following school plus is responsibility of the parent. Okay, and failure to a school plus might result in other disciplinary actions.
Could they be able to take Tylenols?
So we don't provide transportation to school plus, right?
Correct.
I wonder if it should say transportation to and from versus, because I think we just copied this language from the detention, which was occurring after school. So of course you wouldn't have transportation for
Gotcha.
following that.
So-
But
So on a Saturday will be different, will be to
and from are
Correct.
responsibility of the parent. And is 24 hours notice adequate? Do we end up with parents saying, wait, he can't go to school on Saturday. We're going to be out of town. We're going to be, I don't know, like,
Well,
do they have flexibility on which Saturday
have
they end up going?
flexibility. The administrators, the disciplinary officers have because the Saturday school is not always in place. So they might do it once a month, and they might in advance tell the parents, and they might take the Wednesday school or Saturday school. But that's definitely, there's a flexibility from the administrator to come to a middle ground there with the parents about if they have some other activities. And if not, that's when they could go to a detention. Maybe the parents can go to detention or to in-school suspension. But usually, I'm not going to get into a school suspension. But yeah, that's a talk that the parents administrator gets on that. And student services in attendance rule violation. It's just taking the word the student's excuse and truant, and the school might take disciplinary action. So clarification of the language at this point.
Any questions on this one?
Dr. Landry?
Dr. Landry, are you safe on this one? We good? I think we're good.
All right. Now, the next one, in an appropriate conduct of behavior, we are adding only to be used for pre-K and to second grade students engaging in an indecent misconduct, such as exposing or showing his or her private body parts in a manner that is not lewd and lascivious, and there is no proof that a student has conscious sexual intent of conduct, and the officers, the disciplinary officers, were going to a level 3 sexual offense, and they were coding the BPK, kindergarten, first and second graders, with a sexual offense assessor code, where the kid was not just being lewd and lascivious, and we wanted to explain that. We have several schools saying, hey, this is not lewd and lascivious, but there was no other code for the administrator to code that action. And we are putting pre-K to second grade because Cesar put that pre-K to second grade, even though the student might do an action, we align with Cesar, so they could be where we don't apply any discipline. For example, elementary school, a first grader bring a knife without knowing there is a real knife. Cesar is saying, please code it as a weapon on campus or a school ground, but you as an administrator can say that there is no discipline because the kid had no clue that that was a weapon. So aligning ourselves with Cesar, that's what we put pre-K to second grade. If the investigation shows that it's not a lewd and lascivious, the administration can put this call as inappropriate if the student did something exposing. I also researched other code of conduct, other counties around, and they had indecent exposure of, but I didn't want to go that far. I wanted to keep it inappropriate behavior, conduct or behavior, so the school has something that they can, write down, notify the parents that this happened without going to a sexual offense in the code of conduct.
Are you good with this?
I'm very good with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm aware of an incident.
We have a lot of
I'm
elementary
very
school
happy
this year
to hear
calling
that.
us. It's like, Carlos,
Yeah.
sexual offense, and we're like, it is a kindergarten.
Right.
So
Or a
So-
disabled pre-K.
a disabled or somebody.
So
Thank you
per
for
the
doing
Cesar
that.
guidelines, like if a third grader were to do this, they're deemed to be competent enough to be lewd and lascivious.
Correct. And
Got
if the
it.
investigation by administration come out with that, no, this behavior was lewd and lascivious, then they'll go to the sexual offense that will, after the investigation, they know that he got.
So there's still an appeal process for a third, fourth, or fifth grader
Correct,
if they were to do this example.
correct.
Okay.
But is there any interview of the child? Because,
Yes, in the investigation, the due process of
Okay.
the interview about what's happening, the teacher can have
he just wanted to
a,
show his pee-pee.
correct. Correct. Yes.
I do that a lot.
Then in the page 50, in the disciplinary interventions, as a level 3, we have in our code of conduct that level 3 infractions may be subjective to alternative disciplinary placement from a school for no more than 1 year, full calendar year, on case-by-case basis. So level 3 cases, and I put it afterwards in the alcohol and drugs, so that kind of come together, because the level 3 says you may suspend the kid, alternate place the kid, but then alcohol and drug possession, which are level 3, says that only you can be suspended for 10 days. But it's a case-by-case basis. Because if I'm a student and I bring amount of drugs to school, so that's what we say that, hey, in case-by-case cases, or if the student has a history of misbehaving and have a behavior contrast with the school, then that student may be alternative place or recommended by alternative place by the principal.
So on the alcohol and drug use, it's still going to be you will be suspended for up to 10 days. It's not a you may be suspended. So if there's a small amount of drugs per your example, the student still will be suspended up to 10 days. There's no situation where they wouldn't be suspended at all.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Correct.
for those
And-
students, is the option of in-school suspension?
No. This is for alternative placement. Now we are alternative placing the student. So
Okay.
So the student is going somewhere, he's going somewhere,
Correct.
not just home,
Correct.
Typically like success.
like success.
Like success or.
I think I'm getting ahead of you, Carlos. That's my bad. I'm on the alcohol and drug use possession ones. So I think you're still on the one above.
At 50 with the case by case.
I agree.
So do we have,
So let's pretend that a student has been.
can he be sent there for longer than a year?
No. For alternative placement, level 3 and 4 is no. We have in our code of conduct there is no more than 1 year for those alternative placement.
Okay. And then what
Zero
happens to the
tolerance
student?
offenses
Back
are
in school?
different.
Zero tolerance offenses could go farther than 1 year,
Okay, got it. Thank you. That's,
which are higher levels of offenses.
got it. Okay.
And again, if a student has a history that year of so many offenses, and then I do something, I do one more, bringing drugs to school, is by case, which if you see the code of conduct, it was only suspended up to 10 days, even though I have been suspended many times, now I can be alternative place if the school decide to do so. So, in level 4, in page 53, we changed the student found to have committed level 4 infraction in school property, school-sponsored transportation, or during the school-sponsored activity may receive 10-day suspension. Before we have the shall. And I don't want to tell you how many schools are not, but all level 4s were not being suspended for 10 days. We want to give a little more. The school can see every case and decide if it's going to, the level 4 can be for 10 days of OSS.
Would you want to add up to in that one as well, Carlos? Because how I'm reading that, if we've got a level 3 that will be suspended up to 10 days
Perfect.
above, would you like that to also, but then we're saying may receive a 10-day suspension, so would it be will receive up to a 10-day
Up to.
suspension to match that language? Okay. That seems to make more sense.
I like May. And the reason I do is because parents, if they see up to them, you're saying, okay, you don't have to give them 10 days. I think we're creating a problem for the administrator who's handling the issue. I mean, it says the same thing, but I think the perception by parents will be very different.
So then
Would
would
you
you want to
say up
change the
to
level
and
3
may?
language as well, on page 50?
Yeah, the other two.
Because then if we're saying a level 4 may, but a level 3 will, that doesn't seem to make much
Yes.
sense.
So
I like the May.
on drug and
I like
alcohol, I'll change it to
consistency.
May. Okay.
Yeah,
I
go
got
May
you.
with all of them.
may be suspended up to 10 days for all of them. Is that what we like?
Yeah, because there always could be extenuating circumstances.
So maybe suspended up to 10 days?
For the ones on page 50 as well, yeah. Those alcohol
And
assessor
50.
and drug use possession assessor.
In 51, right?
I mean, heaven forbid, but if we have alcohol at the Lake Hills prom, we
Correct.
don't want to send them away like that.
Correct. And that's why we say the shall was too strong, and the schools, in all honesty, were not suspending 10 days for every level 4, because there are some codes that might not
Yeah.
deserve the 10 days, so. However, if the student is recommended for alternative placement, then the student shall be suspended for 10 days. Now, I'm alternative placing you for so long, much longer than the 10 days, then you gotta go for 10 days at that point. I'm not gonna touch page 58, that's the part that I'm gonna change for the US mail.
Carlos,
and
real
all
quick.
that. That's a due process of
Yeah.
page 58.
I'm sorry, back to 53 real quick.
problem.
Why do we need both bullet points then? I don't see a clear difference between the two. Like, if we're doing something on school property, or if we're doing something that may be subject to alternative placement, like, what's the difference there? Or I guess, why is bullet point 2 important to have there?
So the first bullet is just within the school. There can be 5 days OSS or 7
Sure.
days or 10 days. The bullet, the second one is now I'm recommending this, the principal is recommended to our office the alternative placement for that incident.
Even if it was on school property, school
Correct.
sponsored, you can still, that gives you the latitude to do that?
Correct.
Okay. It just seemed weird having just that section, but kind of like what Mr. Dodd said earlier, there's probably more clarification in the
More
whole page than just these
clarification.
2 bullet points.
Yeah.
Okay.
58, again, is about the due process, the written notice that I already, that we're
Yeah.
gonna have, and the US
Yeah.
and that. And I just want to mention, can we go back to the
He's going.
presentation? Yeah. So if we go back to the presentation and the page. Yep, thank you. And I just wanted to stress that all these people were part of this. I know that Dr. Landry was very active today with you guys, but all this group of people between departments and APs were part of the review committee of collaboration for the student code of conduct. I know that we have been asking questions while we were doing, so if you let me know if you have any question, any more question, I will make the changes that you guys gave me today, and I will share with you or with the board those changes, so you can revise one more time before it goes up in the public. Okay?
Any
I
other
don't-
questions?
I have a question. I don't have anything about the changes or anything. I'm just curious. The makeup of the committee, in the past, it has always included a combination of principals and assistant principals and a board member. Is there a reason for this change?
And
Are you specifically asking about the board member component?
about the.
No, I'm more concerned with the principal component.
Principals on there.
I have assistant principals.
Right.
I will add if you,
Now, I just was wondering why there was change.
the principal part? Oh,
Why the makeup of the committee now does not include principals?
yeah, I decided not to bring the principals out again this time. I did it in person, and then I didn't want to take the principals away from this, but if that's a recommendation, I will bring them back next year without any problem. to be
I would
part.
recommend that you have, we've actually had people above principal be a part of it before. I think that's important.
Okay. Thank you for the recommendation.
Thank you.
No, I will definitely include them and I will include them several for different levels and regions. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Sellis?
I got one. I want to, and I don't know if it's specifically, or maybe it's just more of a safety security type question. Okay, so let's, I'd like to talk about vaping for just a moment. Certainly we know that that's something that's challenging on our campuses, and I think in addition to the dog has been a great help, and I know that we're outfitting some of our schools with the detectors in the bathrooms and things of the sort. I think my question is largely, when a student is caught vaping, does the response vary whether they were caught by law enforcement or by school administration?
Yes.
And so, because if they're caught by law enforcement, right, that's a violation of Florida statute, and they can be issued a citation for that. And I think when we see our SRD report every day, we see a couple of those. But I know the couple we're seeing is a very small segment of the actual incidents that are occurring on campus. And so I'm wondering about if they're identified by administrator versus law enforcement, how many of those people are just confiscating and sending kids back to class because it's a lot? You know, maybe they'd spend their whole day just addressing this one, flow of misbehavior, or should they be handing them over to law enforcement saying, hey, you made a violation of Florida statute, go collect your citation or something?
Yeah, and I think that's part of a larger discussion with our law enforcement partners, because there is inconsistency with that as far as the civil citations, the law enforcement citations that go along with it. And I do see it in the shift report, and I know that it's a larger problem than what we see in the shift report. I know that some agencies are, that's a focus for some agencies that we see just from the shift report. And I don't know that there is necessarily need for discretion with it like any other disciplinary offense. Like you say, it may depend on what is happening in the flow of the campus that day. If an administrator or a law enforcement officer would consider that vaping incident that this student is having minor compared with other things they're dealing with, so let me just take it, don't do it again, and we move on about our day. Or if it needs to be something that is of greater focus. And you're right, we've put a lot of resources into curbing the problem with our vape detection K9, which is now leading to a great deterrent, because the students know. I did find out this morning that the second K9 will be here this week. So we'll get to meet the second K9. And we are starting to use vape detection, like you said, as a pilot, just to see. But I think we're currently in the data gathering just to see, and we know that it's an epidemic, it's going on, but to what extent do we address it? Is it consistent across the district? No. Is it consistent with administration? No. Law enforcement? No. But I think we're just now getting a pulse on the gravity of it, and we have to, not necessarily rate what is important to deal with and not important to deal with, because we know this is an issue, but in the greater, atmosphere of what's happening on that campus in a given day, where does this really rank?
However, in the assessor reporting, we have to notify assessor of any incident like that. So is it tobacco? Is it THC? Is it just flavor vape?
Right.
We don't know. That's when the law enforcement come in, but we should be documenting that these incidents happen on campus.
And I don't know, but I foresee Cesar really addressing this differently, because right now it's a tobacco code. But if that vape, like Carlos said, if that device doesn't have nicotine in it and it's not a tobacco product, can you really code it as that? And is vaping something that is coded separately? So vaping is the issue as opposed to tobacco or drugs. Because if a device is confiscated, then we have to determine if it is drug possession or if it's tobacco, and where all of that is coded. And it's a lot of work that goes into that.
Yeah, I think I'd really like to encourage some conversation between school administrators and law enforcement and get on the same page.
For sure.
That, because I think that largely the response, at least at the high school in my district, has been, let's just lock the bathrooms. And that's problematic for the kids who are not vaping.
Right.
Or, that it seems nearly impossible to find a bathroom that is not occupied by somebody who is. And I can't tell you how many times my own kid has been searched. And then he's in there and he says, and then just send everybody else back to class who had the violation. He's like, I'd like to see some justice. Like, you're not going to solve the problem if you don't have any consequences for these kids, right? And I think a large part of it probably speaks to what else is going on the campus and how challenging it might be when you got 2,600 kids. And so, I mean, it could essentially be a full-time job for law enforcement. And certainly they don't want that to be their full-time job either. They got a lot of other responsibilities to do. And that's where I just want to really encourage that conversation and what that looks like. Because now as the vape detectors are going in the bathrooms, what is going to be our protocol when we start catching people? Because we're going to probably catch a lot more, right? When we get that notification. And is it just a confiscate and back to class? Or is there going to be some documentation of, here's your citation and, repeated issues of this?
Yeah. We'll facilitate conversations with law enforcement and administration about that and hopefully come up with some district-wide consistency.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
I had a question just in reviewing it, the code of conduct as a parent. I don't understand, like, it's everywhere through the document. It's like, I'm on page 49. I don't know if you have the full document in front of you, but like, just as one example, and like I said, it's all throughout, but where it says disrespect, the definition of disrespect, it says whatever, I-66. What is that? What is I-66?
I think that's the code in the, now, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I think that's
Sure.
the code in the computer,
That's our code, our focus, formerly
so
Skyward
it's a
code.
66.
So it's a 66.
So if I'm a principal, like battery without injury for a student, it says I-95. So that's the code I put on my
that's the code.
discipline referral?
Yes,
Okay, so is it in there for our people? It's not in there for parents' sake?
right.
Correct.
Okay.
That just references what the code is. We know some of them,
Yeah.
like offhand, we know 13 is inappropriate.
Yeah, on page 47, there's a box at the top that says the I references after level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and 0 tolerance infractions refer to the incident type number located on the student referral. So that's assessor thing.
Right? Like, I'm like, what is that?
It's a
Well,
cheat
and-
sheet.
Yeah, it's a discipline code.
Yeah.
Okay,
For-
that's what,
Is
listen,
there
I
a
was looking for
document that lists
myself.
all those I numbers and what they mean?
That would,
This one.
Assessor.
that would be an IT
That,
question, but we can cheat sheet that.
So is it okay? I don't care. I was just, like I said, doing my own research recently and had no idea what that meant. And some of them have like policies related to them and some of them don't. So where there's no policy, that's our own code of conduct
local, yeah,
versus having a policy attached to it as well. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Sellis, Mr. Mabry, also Dr. Landry, and Mrs. Sellis for your help on that one. Before we move on, Mr. Weeks is here and is able to address the focus question if you guys are interested. I assume you are. Mr. Weeks, come on up.
You can't do it. So, all kidding aside, I was texting Focus. It'll be a customization. They would definitely make that for us. We've got some extra enhancement hours left over from the project, so we can put that in. But currently, in the version they're in, it's just that upload field. But we went ahead. We expect that out next Thursday when we talk to them. So it won't be a problem to put it in if it's a recommendation y'all like to see. It just doesn't currently exist in the system.
I'd love to see it.
Is there an additional cost?
Well, it's left over from the original conversion, so we have these hours that we got to use for something, so don't spend them all
Seems
in
like
one
a good
place,
one to use.
but you
And
can
what is
spend them
that-
here.
What is that going to be? That a parent can just put in the reason?
Yeah, probably without really specking it out and looking on the back end, it probably would be like a parent could say, I excuse this student, like sickness, illness, or something like that with a quick couple clicks instead of the upload. I do kind of feel like the upload is a little bit burdensome. A lot of people are accessing it from their phones, and phones just don't do that all that well. So, like, I think it's a fair thing. If we have an audit trail so we can guarantee it's the parent clicking that button, it would be pretty secure. So, all right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Weeks.
Awesome.
All right.
I'll start using it.
Moving on, 3.02 Student Progression Plan for 2025-26. Mrs. Francis Sellis, come on up.
My monitor isn't working. Is there,
Is that working?
oh, yours isn't either? No. Never mind, let's just get through this. Well, we got it printed.
Yeah, it's printed.
Is it
doesn't, it's hard to see up there.
We have it printed though,
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
unless you need that presentation.
we're good.
All right. Well, good morning. Celis
morning.
number 2 up for the student progression plan. Mr. Felter is joining me because we may get into some different questions that I may need his assistance with this morning. So I appreciate his support. We thought the code of conduct was going to be quick and easy, and so I think the student progression plan is supposed to be as well, but let's see how we do. So as you know, this is dictated by statute. The reason that we have a student progression plan, statute dictates most of what is included in the student progression plan as well. So annually, we update it based on legislation, clarifications, language additions, and deletions. Our student progression plan committee, as they said in the previous presentation, is a collaboration amongst all departments, some school principals, as well as our union representatives. So this is a collaboration amongst everybody, so everyone gives a little input, and then I just hold it, and then hopefully I'm able to answer the majority of the questions. Throughout the document, there are some non-substantive edits. Every year, we find punctuation or something that was underlined or something that we corrected. Links to the handbooks. And the handbooks are updated annually. That goes back to our webpage. This year, we had a lot of those with the webpage kind of changing over. We've changed language, clarified language, and then actually, we did not update the tables for the statewide assessments concordance because those have not changed yet. There is talk that some of those concordance will change, specifically the CLT for graduation concordant. There's talk that that will change, but that will be decided this year once the baseline has been determined. And then the appendices will reflect any changes within the document as well. So now we'll flip to the document. Okay, yeah, see, that's terrible. You can't read that. The first place on page 8, thinking about the Hope Scholarship. So this is statutory language that now matches. So it went in more specifically to, instead of just simple battery robbery, it spelled out sexual offenses, sexual battery, and then that's the ability for the student to be able to change to an eligible private school with the Hope Scholarship. So that's just some language clarification in statute with the Hope Scholarship requirements that we made sure that we corrected in the student progression plan.
And that could just simply be, you were the victim of battery one time, you reported that to the school principal, and now you can go collect your voucher. Is that the way
Yep.
You don't even have
times
to,
a
you
month.
can get a voucher without that. You can get a voucher without the Hope,
That is
right? You don't
something.
have to have anything. So
I mean, so I mean, as we're talking about the budget implications, I mean, this just gets into how critical it is that we create an environment for our students where, you know, they're not going to become regular victims of any of these things. But I mean, when you have that many kids, they're going to happen, right, at some point. But
Yeah,
man, it's a high expectation for us.
correct. So moving to the next one, and page 9 and 10, this is really just some language cleanup. We had language in here still talking about ESSA and then under authorized under cleanup, so we deleted those pieces out. On page 16, talking about this piece stricken out that says the school principal must receive the letter to decline participation in health screenings within 10 days following the student's school entry date. There's no limitation on when a parent can submit that they do not want to be, they want to decline that service. So that 10-day language is old, and it was stricken through because there is no limitation on that due to the current Parent Bill of Rights language.
I'm just laughing because I agree with you wholeheartedly, Mr. Dodd, about like the expectations for the school district. This is completely not related to this, so I promise it'll be brief. But I do think it needs to be brought to the attention of either you or it might be you, Dr. Landry. I don't know. I know we don't monitor the health department. Like that's not a thing that takes place. But they do come into our schools and offer health screenings. I received a notification, I would say 2 or 3 months ago. It's become a joke in our family, just so you know. But I received a notification of Jace's BMI screenings over the course of several years, and that he is obese. And it included a childhood pamphlet on obesity. Jace weighs about 100 pounds soaking wet in 6th grade. Like, I wish he was a little bigger, if we're being honest. Like, I hope that he gets my husband's height and not mine, right? So anyway, it was just interesting, and if we're reporting erroneously, my point in this conversation is my husband was like, you need to call somebody. I'm like, oh, who do you want me to tell? The superintendent? Because she does not oversee the health department.
Right.
Like, let's not be ridiculous. However, we do have a relationship, and I don't like it when erroneous information comes from what appears to be the school district. So I don't know who, I'm putting that out there so everybody is aware.
Explain what happened again.
I got a letter in the mail to the parents of Jace Luke, and when I opened it up, it had a letter that his body mass index had been recorded in, like, I'm just putting this out there, I didn't pay close attention, first grade, maybe fourth grade, and then again in sixth grade, and that it didn't say overweight, it said he is obese.
So is the health department screening all of our kids?
They do screen our kids
Unless you fill
throughout
out the
different
letter,
grade levels.
that's it.
Yes.
And I can tell you that has been a problem
Forever.
for a number of years.
Okay. They put
And
a
a lot of
packet on what
parents
is
do
childhood
call.
obesity. I'm like, oh,
Yeah. A lot
Okay,
of
so I
parents
totally
do
didn't know
call.
they came in. So they come in to our schools, all our schools?
yes. Yes.
Dr. Landry, come on down.
They do. Sorry, I know you said you thought this might be quick. So it just gave me a minute to talk about it, but it is.
Parents can opt out.
You can opt out of it, but it does provide a service. Like they do vision. We have a vision screening, body. I think it provides a service, but if it's inaccurate information, it's completely inaccurate information.
Completely inaccurate.
Right.
If you wouldn't mind, just on your particular case, could you send that to me in an email?
Sure.
Please. And a copy of the letter, if you have it, would really help. If you don't, it's
That's
okay.
asking way too much.
All right, all right. It's okay.
Click a button and focus, it'll go.
I might have the pamphlet.
have
Like, it is a
9
joke
weeks.
in our family now, so it's terrible. But
a couple of things. They do provide a service, and we do have a contract with them, so we actually pay them for that service. The Department of Health has had new leadership in the last couple of years. Actually, the last year, they have a lot of turnover. And we are working with them to change the language of the letter and not to include that pamphlet. Maybe there's a more modern pamphlet, or maybe there's a different way to, I don't know, but we agree wholeheartedly. Now, if it's an error, that's kind of a different
Yeah.
issue. But the whole language of that letter, we really are working hard to try and get them to change that because, yeah, it's not a nice letter. I've seen it.
But tell me what that looks like. So is this kindergarten to third grade, or is it?
Oh, those
So-
are
It's
So
certain
if there's-
screenings in certain grades, and it's in some of our documents. I don't know if it's in here or in code of conduct, but we notify parents every year. These are statutorily required. So, for example, K1 and 3 is vision.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right, yeah. We do BMI, we do scoliosis in grade 6. BMI is, I don't know, 1 and 3 and 6, maybe. I'm
there were 3
sorry. I
years.
don't- It's listed out, but these are required by statute. So
And-
it's a
and-
service we offer parents because they'd have to pay for it if they got it on the outside.
And Mrs. Luke, in your case?
Yeah.
So they had empirical, so he'd been
Yeah.
tested for his weight over
Yes.
3 years?
Yeah, and it was not over 3 years consecutive. It was like, she mentioned like first grade, third grade, fifth grade, but Jace has never been obese, ever.
That just seems like a weird one to me, that you would even be testing.
It's
BMI.
statutorily required.
Right.
Yeah,
But the inaccuracy of it was really just interesting also.
that's bothersome,
Just kidding.
very bothersome.
What?
The-
Right.
Yeah, no,
Like Jace will be like, can we go get ice cream? We're like, no, you're obese.
We got this letter.
That's right. Don't think his older sisters haven't had a heyday with that one, so.
Okay, and what else then? So BMI,
Vision,
Vision.
hearing.
vision good.
Hearing,
Hearing good.
scoliosis.
Scoliosis?
Mm-hmm.
Seems a little technical, but good, I guess. Okay,
It's a very simple screen.
that's it.
Yes, sir.
been around forever.
And they come in during the school day?
Yes. We schedule that with all the schools at the beginning of the year, all the elementary and middle schools.
Interesting. Okay, good.
Any other questions for Dr. Landry on BMI?
Wait, just one more second. What happens to that letter? So the letter goes to the parents. Does the
else gets
district
it, right?
get a letter? Does the district get a letter also?
No.
No.
We don't get a report?
They give us percentages. Percentages are what are reported to the state, and that's what they give us. We don't see the individual letters. I mean, it only came to our attention that this letter is horrible when parents were bringing it to us.
Okay, so
In the case
now,
of Vision and hearing, excuse me,
no, you're good.
vision and hearing.
That
what
goes
happens?
in focus, because if they don't pass, then we have to follow up.
We follow up.
And DOH, both,
Good.
in partnership, we follow up.
Good.
What do we do when they're obese?
That was kind of what I was getting at. So now that I'm intrigued, what are we doing with this data that we're collecting? Per statute, I'm with you, but like, does the state then step in and say we're going to change lunch programs or something else to make sure Jace is actually obese, or
They
like?
are supposed to
He
be
doesn't get ketchup
monitoring health of our district.
Well, but I do think, like, you think about the school lunch conversation and the lack of ketchup, like, I know that's been a big topic. If they're using erroneous data to make decisions about what we're serving kids for lunch, that's a problem too. Not that that's not your problem, but like that could be contributing to this whole, we're taking away sodium, we're taking away salt, because we have all those obese children, but they're not.
But I mean, BMI is already a wacky thing to begin
Right.
with. I mean,
It is.
80% of people are probably clinically obese from
Yeah.
BMI.
Sure.
Probably low end, but
Probably.
it is interesting.
It is it was interesting. So anyway, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Landry.
I love that she keeps going to a seat in the back of the room.
I know.
She thinks it's the last time every time. Back to the student progression plan, Mrs. Sellis.
Okay, so I don't even know where it was. Let me see. Okay, 16, we finished page 16. Okay, so page 23 and 24. So the Lexia Core 5 is a progress monitoring test exam program that was 7. We removed this whole chunk because every single one of these is already in the testing chart. The information about them, when they're given, and how they're used. So this was deemed redundant. We probably should have taken this out years ago. This year, like you said, every year we find something that we are surprised is still in there. This should have been taken out years ago. It is, we considered it redundant. This information is covered in the previous pages 21 through 24 when you look at those assessment charts. The next section is our elementary school section. So on page 32, we simplified the language. English language arts, the standards include everything that's written in parentheses. And that doesn't need to be re-updated and looked at every single year. The same with social studies. Those pieces are included within those standards. So we just took that out to simplify that language to not have to update that all of the time. Page 32 also talked about the mid-year LSAs will not be used for grading, right? We had a couple things we've refined that language throughout the years. We took out any reference to mid-year or quarter, it's just the LSAs. Because we do kind of change those LSAs sometimes about when they're given and like what's required, what's not required. So we simplified that to say the LSAs. So we're not looking at the quarter or the mid-year and making that clarification every time. And then the next part under grading, and this is the number 5, this gets a bit adjusted every single year. A clarification that was requested about redos. So it seems as if some students would not take something on the first attempt and then instead of makeup, assume a redo kind of situation. So to me, a redo assumed an initial attempt. Apparently that wasn't always the case in some places. So this is just a clarification that you have to have an initial attempt in order to have a redo. Again, assumed, but now it's clarified so that we don't have to clarify that when people try to get around some of those rules.
Mr. Dodd?
Well, I have a question on the go back here, on the language just above it. But if we wanted to talk about redos for a moment, I didn't want to deprive somebody of the opportunity to bring that up. But
The floor is yours, sir.
okay, so going back to this comment here about the LSAs, along with other computer-based supplemental programs are used for progress monitoring. And so about not being graded, so does this include IXL and ALEKS and all those things? So none of those things should be grades.
And that's why it used to be listed out different programs, and then we generalized it to include also all of those supplemental programs should not be graded.
How do teachers know that? Because that is not common
don't.
practice.
Yeah, we understand IXL, ALEKS is more than likely of so many topics, they do get grades for those. We've met school by school when there are issues arise that we go back and have conversations with the schools. I think this is more, I think in this language, it is for progress monitoring. Like if the LSA was a specific time and space, like I gave this assessment, that assessment should not be graded. So I think it is loose interpretation on, could I grade this IXL assignment? I have this 5-question quiz that I used, can I put it in as a grade? I think we could do more work around that and really see how schools are using those. What's your question within that?
Well, my question was, I guess I'm just trying to confirm what I'm reading is what I'm reading, because I do know that Commonplace, ALEKS has replaced the textbook in many places, IXL has replaced the textbook in many places, and And I mean, like you look at, I mean, you can go into Focus now, look at some of my kids, and you'll see like their grades are
title is gonna be
IXL.
listed, right.
The grades are literally like IXL, 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 and there's hardly anything else. And so, if we haven't identified that as sound educational practice, and I see it through my narrow lens of just the small number of children in my house. It's happening in other places too, right? So like,
Yes.
and probably a lot of other places,
Yes.
and so that's where I'm wondering, how we get that word out in such a way that makes instruction more meaningful.
Yeah, and I think it might be, do we want to make sure this wording is correct? So maybe I would like to hear from you to say, do we agree that it should not be taken for a grade? Because there are arguments on the other side when it comes to LSA. Teachers want that to be taken for a grade because otherwise they don't try or they're not putting in the effort. So we've really taken both sides of this argument.
Always-
Ultimately, I mean, it does come down to pacing.
Always-
Ultimately, I mean, it does come down to
pacing,
pacing, right? I was gonna say the same thing. Comes down to individual pacing of what I do. And right, I was gonna say the same thing. Comes down to individual pacing of what I do as a teacher. There is,
Do we have the blueprint still?
yes, that's where scope and sequence are blueprints, yes.
And is this not tied to that sequence?
Yes,
It
it
is.
Yeah.
Because what we don't want to say is, it says I have to be on, because what we don't want to say is, it says I have to be on this page, this
agree.
skill, this day, and students teaching or something that's occurred that would throw us off pace.
And this is computer-based, so you would know based on the problem.
LSA would be not necessarily, but like if it's Alex or IXL, that's totally separate. That's more, it should be a resource, it should be supplemental. But we understand hearing from Mr. Dodd and even Dr. Luke that that is not always the case. They see it with their children coming home. I think our team sees the same thing, that those are grades. I think I'm looking for some of those practice aids. I think I'm looking for some of those practices are probably strong curriculum academic, that they follow the standard. So is that something that we should incorporate or not? I'm open for your opinions. I think, Mr. Mathias, yours is a different question. Why aren't?
So what's the fix for it? Just striking out mid-year?
Well, I
Yeah,
wonder, on those LSAs, like if I didn't get to a particular subject, do I get the result of the test back where it is chunked and I can say,
Right.
I'm taking a grade for these parts, but I'm not going to include the grade? Are they able to do that?
That's something LSAs has been a huge topic from with now an assessment that we feel best in if we do that by quarter. So I think we're moving toward that direction. We're just trying to work with old language that we have, even though I think we're trying to be proactive on our end, fixing some of the LSA concerns.
Yeah, because if I go to Student Mind, I understand what you're saying about if I don't grade it, the students don't take it seriously. My college students are the same way. They want to know what's graded. Like if it's not graded, it's almost like it's not important.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
So it's trying
that's
to
right.
motivate them to do well on the assessment so I can have a better understanding of what they understand.
I think part of why we decided to make this ungraded, because there was a time when it was,
Yep.
is that I don't know that the percentage correct crosswalked over to a reasonable thing.
Right.
Like if you got 60-something% correct, you might be considered proficient. That's a 3 maybe,
But it was
but
a
suddenly we're giving you a D for being
Correct.
proficient.
Correct.
Or you get an 85, you might have come away with a 5 on the EOC,
Correct.
but we're saying that's a B.
This is because we didn't want Alex or I.
Grades.
100%.
They are.
100%. And I can tell you, like, it's not just one subject or one teacher. Like, it happens.
But if a parent read this, then it shouldn't be.
But it doesn't work. Because even I go in to meet with the teacher, and I know the policy. I show the policy, and they say, that's just the way I'm doing it. Like that happens.
They say that to you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what do you say?
And then I say, well, let's get the principal involved in this one.
And then what's he say?
Same thing. They back up the teacher. So like it doesn't help. It doesn't help. Sometimes there have been like an insurmountable amount of assignments.
Yeah. I've had numerous conversations with leaders about, or even math department leads, like Alex is not our core, right? So how do we move away from using Alex as our core? And I think IXL.
Should-
And that is why they're taking it for a grade.
That's what I was going to say, is I feel like that it's that conversation. If the teacher can justify that and that they're teaching, like I'm laughing. If the teacher can justify that and that they're teaching, like I'm laughing because I obviously have my computer up here, and we have teachers that aren't from schools of teacher education that we're having issues getting exceptional math teachers if we have curriculum that's helping. And I can, being a math person, I can be with Jace at home and we can do IXL or Emmy. I don't from schools of teacher education that we're having issues getting exceptional math teachers if we have curriculum that's helping. And I can, being a math person, I can be with Jace at home and we can do IXL or IXLs in all the areas.
I think that this is really just one small glimpse of a much bigger conversation about computer and supplemental resources. Just a prior page we talked about. We had Alexia in there. We've got Amira. We've got the STAR testing. We've got iReady. We've got all of these things, all these components. And I've been in classrooms this year where you walk in and every kid is just sitting on a computer. And I've been in a classroom where every kid's sitting on a computer and the teacher's over there on the side and GoGuardian just monitoring everybody's to see what they're doing to make sure that they're not on the wrong tab. And I'm thinking, well, that's the absence of solidly good instruction there.
That was part of that personalized learning that we put in place a while back, right?
Yeah, and so.
The teacher was monitoring. Ms. Cunningham, what do you have to think about?
Well, first of all, I think if you have a rule that says it's not supposed to be grade taken, everybody should be following the rule. But I think it does have to be a bigger conversation. I think a decision needs to be made. Is the value of the grade level material, are we saying that that's something that we trust and we're okay with? I certainly like the part about if I teach my class something and the majority of them don't get it, I need to go back and reteach. But this is a problem if we got people willy-nilly just violating the rules.
At a grade level, but not penalize another kid in that class that's further along. There should be a way to have that part of the standards and what we're doing from a progression plan side of things.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge I've seen is that some of these tools that were designed to be used as intervention became practices that go with this. It's a very complicated topic.
Well, yeah, I think, yes. I wanted to hear from you, so I'm glad we have this opportunity.
Right.
Yes, I wanted to hear from you, so I'm glad we have this opportunity.
Right.
And before I move, Mr. Mathias, this become more our tier one or our core, which we have text, we have high curriculum materials that we already pay for and we should be using, so we understand that.
And just so we know, it's not just happening in Lake County. Places
Right,
are
and we're
used.
required by the state to progress monitoring, and typically that's through an online, you have to purchase from this list, so.
And I
it's
want to
bigger than
say,
us.
like you just mentioned, one of the best improvements that I've seen, I know that whenever Jace is assigned topics, they're specific. Like, he doesn't get to go in and just move. He's taking specific topics that are aligned with what they're doing in class, which has been really helpful because then I can actually see what's taking place.
And that, to take a grade on that.
That's great.
Makes sense to me, because this is the lesson I taught, this is actually old school worksheet.
Right.
That supports what.
Right.
It's my.
It's just online.
An old school
Right.
worksheet for that individual student, which I think is, in a perfect world, what we all want.
Sorry.
Right.
I know. Move on.
Correct.
Keep on.
Yeah.
It's being tabled. Y'all just keep on.
Gladly will.
Okay.
All right.
Motion to proceed.
Granted.
We are still in this section. So in elementary.
So as y'all are talking about redos, and I know there's some best practices associated with this, and I think you've done a lot over the time, over the years to add language,
Attempt to.
Right. Give the students some ownership in that and just go in and blindly hope that they're going to, get a better score. I guess I'm wondering about best practices on that sort of thing. I know time is really precious for teachers, right? It's the one resource we'd all love to have more of. But in the absence of that, I know that there are schools that are requiring the redos occur before or after school. Does the district have sort of guidance on that sort of thing? Is that okay? I'm just wondering, school, whereas you don't get a redo, take the bus. I feel like that's an unlevel playing field there.
Yeah, I'd probably sit at this table and say that's not the recommendation. We have intervention built in during the day everywhere, that is the goal is to take place. We're not trying to create an atmosphere where the haves.
The next language addition on page 36, and I think on your form. So this is directly matching the state board rule when it comes to back to Parent Bill of Rights and that initial notification after the student progress monitoring. And and what is required for the schools. Once we see that progress monitor, we find anyone to be, the word is substantially deficient, something deficient, substantially deficient, and we do have requirements on how we are to notify parents and then involve parents, and that they may request more frequent notification than is actually required by state board rule, which is how that's written. The same thing on page 39 with the portfolio, that language has been updated to match the latest state board rule as well when it comes to those portfolios for grades.
What is it, the early literacy versus the STAR, vice versa? I don't know. I get them mixed up, right? And so then scored really low because now taking the next high level test. Got the letter from the state. Your child is reading deficient. Got the paperwork to go sign her up for a Hope Scholarship because she's deficient. Got the application to sign up for resource. And through the course of that, I think it took about 7 months to finally get an answer that no, she's not reading deficient, that because of this difference in tests. We've notified the state she's deficient. That's what they'll forever think. And so I'm wondering how kids fall into that same bucket where because of their acceleration, took the higher level test, came back with a 1 or a 2 on it or whatever it was, and was declared deficient. So I'm wondering what's the district oversight of that process? And how do we control that? Like, we can't just be haphazardly sending letters to parents saying your kid doesn't know how to read. Because that's essentially what happened.
And I think that was an issue on our end that we did have corrected since then. And I know, and then it was, how did we follow back up with those families? I don't think we've successfully done well, but we've corrected at least the initial issue on the front end. So our oversight will be from us, do our systems and our checkpoints balance so that doesn't happen?
Yeah. So is there a checkpoint that we're putting in at the district level, or is this going to at the school level, or how are we fixing that reporting?
It's going to be at the district level.
Okay.
I mean, from the school level over to the district level, yes.
The letter came from the state.
Letter came because the district
We
report.
checked, it was a box, we checked, yes.
To the state.
Mm-hmm. So I got a letter from the school and the state. I got 2 letters.
Right.
2 letters. My kid can now be sitting in private school, using the Hope Scholarship, and she shouldn't have been eligible for that. And so once again, if we're talking about the implications of those scholarships on our budget,
Yes, sir.
we need to make sure we're not haphazardly sending kids away that don't even qualify.
Agreed, yes.
We're in the middle school section now. Again, back to language updates so that it matches what is written everywhere else. So before basic skills in reading and writing, it's standards. And then specifically standards in ELA, math, science, and social studies. So the basic reading and writing is included within our ELA standards. And then on 44, this cleanup matches now what, again, back to standards and benchmarks. Page 45 is back to that repeat of those health standards being FDOE and state board and school board approved. And then the same grading clarifications, which again, we will bring you a different proposal on that one. We have the repeated language of that curriculum being FDOE and school board approved. Page 68 is again, the note that we're gonna, updated language is around the GED. I don't remember the price of it.
I think this was for a student who does this, because now they can't earn a standard diploma.
Right.
Any traction on that? Or
I
is
have
it-
not heard of any traction on that.
And they count as a non-grad for us.
Counts
Right.
against us.
Counts
It's
against
bizarre to me
us.
that a minor can decide, I don't want to go to school anymore, and
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so the ask was that if they do take a diploma, is how it's written. But we didn't see any traction on that this legislative session.
So the student at 16 can withdraw themselves? There's no parental consent to this?
16, they have to have parent
They do have to
consent.
have parents.
Yes, but they have to formally withdraw and terminate enrollment at our schools before they're allowed to enroll in Lake Tech. They used to have to have a waiver signed by the superintendent in order to do that. That waiver is no longer required. We just have to make sure that they're formally unenrolled from our schools first, which will be communication between Lake Tech and us to make sure as anyone under the age of 18
What's the
enrolling there.
reason?
For the change?
Yeah, if the student, let's say, I just don't want to go to school anymore, I'm going to take a GED. And then they unenroll from here, go take the GED, and they fail the GED. Then they can they re-enroll coming back to us?
We've had students enroll.
Or they enroll in the GED prep and stay at Lake Tech.
And try to get back on track with us, yes, sir.
Right.
Any other
I
questions?
don't remember what it was. On Wednesday evening, Mount Dora and Eustis will be playing in the regional quarterfinal game of softball. And I just wanted to let everybody know we're doing Impact Night for Teacher Appreciation Week. And so if anybody's in the area and wants to recognize teachers in the pregame, we're excited about the opportunity to do that. So
What time and what's the location?
it'll be 6:30 at the Panther Den off of Golf Links. That's all I have.
Mrs. Cunningham,
I don't have anything.
Mr. Dudd?
I always appreciate the opportunity to have conversations that make us think. I really value the input of this board and to be able to dive into some of these things. I didn't think about it that way, or I didn't even notice that. I think those sorts of conversations are just really helpful, and I know we've got a very talented staff and a lot of people out there with a lot smarter than any of us are in any of those single areas of expertise. So it's just remarkable to see how everybody comes together to produce a document, out of so many different brains.
Mr. Mathias?
I'm good.
Ditto to those comments, Mr. Dodd. I'm just proud that I can follow a curriculum conversation at this point. I have somewhat of an idea of what's going on, so thank you for your help in getting to that point. Mrs. Cunningham and I had the opportunity to attend Lake Hills graduation the other day, which is always a fantastic event, so I want to shout out Robin Myers and her team for what they do to make that so impactful and do such a good job working with those students and getting them to the place that they can be. Not softball, but baseball. I did attend Game 3 of Mount Dora at Bishop Moore last week, Umatilla versus South Sumter, and then Saturday went to the Lake Minneola game against whoever they played. Umatilla was victorious, so I wanted to give a shout out to Tanner Clark and that team for continuing to do an excellent job. I think they play tonight and tomorrow at Umatilla, and then Thursday, if need be, at Hernando. So I'm going to be there tonight and cheer on Umatilla to keep going on. That's all I've got.
Superintendent?
Yes, and if your calendar isn't full with all of those events, just a reminder that tomorrow night is the annual retirement dinner at the Nation Center. I believe it starts at 5:30.